Jai Gurudev. Page 252. The Lord continued, somewhere this consciousness functions as space, somewhere as a jiva, somewhere as action, somewhere as substance, and so forth, but without intending to do so. Yeah, what does that mean? That same Brahman consciousness is all pervading in every substance, whether it is an immaterial substance like this sofa or this whiteboard or the camera or the phone or the laptop, or if it is a human being, an insect, a bird, an animal or a tree. In all these, the Brahman consciousness is functioning. Yes, because after this 5 feet 7 inches body falls down and dies, what happens? Does this body have the ability to do any action? Can it function? No, it cannot. Means what was really functioning? Was this piece of Prakriti functioning? No. It is the consciousness behind this piece of Prakriti that was functioning. That was actually running this Prakriti. Like that, only all the Prakriti that you see around, everything is run by that one consciousness. Yeah? But still, there is no intention to run or intention to function. For example, an electricity field. Yes? Electric currents are flowing through it. So if your lamp or your mic or any object that runs on electricity comes into contact with the electric field, it starts functioning. Now the electric field did not have an intention that that light should function through me. The electric field did not have an intention that that laptop should run through me, but it still runs because of the electric current. Just like that, the Brahman consciousness is just a field of energy. Yes, and we run because of this field of energy, or the connection between the Prakriti and this field of energy is what gives Prakriti its existence. The day this connection breaks off, Prakriti loses all its functioning. So the functioning is really happening at the consciousness level. And that is why this consciousness is more like a field rather than an individual entity. Yes. Even as all the different oceans are but one indivisible mass of water, this consciousness, though described in different ways, is but one cosmic mass of consciousness. In the body, which is like a lotus, it is the same consciousness that imbibes the experience, which is like honey gathered by the restless mind, which is like the bee. How are bees constantly zoom, 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 zoom. They are not quiet at all. Just like that, your mind is like a bee, no? It's constantly restless, constantly in motion, constantly doing wah, 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 wah. Yes? It is a restless mind which he has compared to a bee. And the honey that is gathered from that restless mind is what? Is really that experience. That experience has come because of the consciousness. Yeah. In this universe, all these various beings, the gods, the demons, mountains, oceans, and so forth, flow within this infinite consciousness. Even as eddies and whirlpools appear in the ocean. Even the wheel of ignorance, which causes the wheel of life and death to revolve, revolves within this cosmic consciousness whose energy is in constant motion. Yeah, so beautifully it is described. This field of consciousness, just imagine it to be a big field, and in this field there are different levels where there are the gods and then the demons, the humans living, and also the siddhas living at a higher level than the gods. All these living in that same field of consciousness. Yes? And in this field of consciousness there is this wheel of ignorance, because of which we are trapped in that samsara, that level of particular existence in which we are right now. For example, we are in the human level of existence, Bhulok. Yeah? So we are trapped here because we are trapped in the wheel of ignorance that runs this loka. Take a higher loka, Bhuvar loka. They have their own wheel of ignorance that runs that particular Bhuvar loka. Now please don't start imagining there is a wheel that is running in circles, and because of that wheel I am stuck in the human body. No. I am stuck in the human body because I am lost in my own wheel of ignorance of this Maya. Yeah? I'm lost in people, I'm lost in situations, I'm lost in things. This being lost in people, situations and things is called being caught up in the wheel of ignorance. Clear? Every level has their wheel of ignorance. So don't think that, oh, once I am out of this human realm, I will not be caught up in another wheel of ignorance. No, there are higher levels of ignorance. You have to cross all of those. Yeah, that's why Gurudev says, no, come to me, come to me. Cross them all and come to me. And just to tell you, when you were in the animal realm, you thought the same, that, oh, once I'm out of this, I will be free. How free are you as a human? Yeah. Homework number 1. You ask yourself, how free are you as a human? And how different is it from your animal past life? It was consciousness in the form of the four-armed Vishnu that destroyed the demons, even as a thunderstorm equipped with the rainbow quenches the heat that rises from the earth. It is consciousness alone which takes the form of Shiva and Parvati, of Brahma, the creator, and the numerous other beings. This consciousness is like a mirror which holds a reflection within itself, as it were, without undergoing any modification thereby. Without undergoing any modification in itself, this consciousness appears as all these countless beings in this universe. So you understood this full paragraph? Yeah, it is not just the Bhuloka of the humans, it's also the Bhuvar Loka where we go as Pitras, and the higher Devaloka, yeah, where all these Brahma and Vishnu, Shiva, Parvati, all these reside. As in, they are not really people, yeah, they are just energy, which are energies which have a higher level of unit of life compared to this human level of existence. Yeah? The infinite consciousness is like a creeper. It is sprinkled with the latent tendencies of countless jiva. Desires are the buds. Past creations are the filaments. The sentient and the insentient beings are parts of the creeper. The one appears as many, but it has not become many. Yeah? So, you have a lot of tendencies. Latent tendencies simply means any habit pattern I formed as a cockroach. Yeah? A little fear of another, say, rat in the house. A cockroach is afraid of the rat. It formed a habit pattern of fear whenever it is in the proximity of a rat, and that habit pattern of fear became a tendency. Then that jiva progressed into another higher life, probably that of a rat. Now this rat had the fear of a cat. Now that became a tendency and that got deposited. Like that, only a tendency to eat this, to run after that. Little tendencies we gathered from one life to another, to another, to another. So as my jiva progressed, I progressed even in the quantity of tendencies, that I started collecting. Clear? So it is basically these tendencies of countless jivas that are there. These tendencies again become the bud of this creeper. These tendencies come up and then they want to become a flower. So you have a tendency suddenly from out of nowhere to do something unusual that you've never done before. Maybe, just experience bungee jumping. Jump into a valley and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? I am not usually that kind of a person who would be interested in something like this. But suddenly that desire pops out of nowhere. And you're like, uh-oh, what was this? A latent tendency. Suddenly that latent tendency which was sitting deep in my consciousness as a seed found its time to sprout today. So it's not really sprouted, just that desire has come up as a bud. If I add fuel to the fire, this bud may start sprouting. Some of you may say, it's cool. Bungee jumping is a good idea. Some of you might not want it. So it's different for different people. I just came up with a simple idea, a simple example. You apply it personally where you feel that suddenly, where did this thought come from? Oh, I'm not such a person. It could be a thought of hatred towards somebody. It might be a thought of jealousy. It might be a thought of even excessive passion towards something or somebody. So you try to connect it in your personal experiences. So that first desire is a bud. Past creations are the filaments. Now the filaments are there inside the bud. Inside any flower there are filaments. These filaments are past creations, my past life, and in that life the strong tendency that I held on to, got attached to. The sentient and the insentient beings are parts of the creeper. The one appears as many, but it has not become many. Now this is very important to understand. The sentient and the insentient beings are part of this creeper. What creeper? This consciousness that I call the field of consciousness. In this example, he has called it as a creeper. So in this creeper only, there are these buds of desires coming up. And inside that bud of desire is that filament of past creations. And in this creeper only there are sentient beings and insentient beings. So sentient means what? Those who can touch and feel. Humans, other birds and animals. And insentient beings that cannot feel, like the sofa, the table. And they are beings. Remember this, that there is consciousness in all of them. Because finally, even a piece of wood, a piece of metal is nothing but a combination of earth, water, fire, air. Yeah? These elements combine together and form that particular metal, wood, whatever insentient being it is. Finally, that insentient being is expressing its characteristics. Yeah? For example, gold is very soft and malleable, but iron is very hard. Yeah? How do the two different metals have different qualities? It's the characteristics of the elements. Yes, and that characteristics of the elements, of course, come from the consciousness in them. Yes, so in this consciousness there are both sentient and the insentient beings. And one appears as many means that one consciousness appears as different things, but it has not become many. Big difference, huh? It just appears to be many, but it has not become many. Yeah. It is by the infinite consciousness that all this is thought of, expressed and done. It is the infinite consciousness alone which shines as the sun. It is the infinite consciousness which appears as the bodies which are in fact inert and which come into contact with one another and derive various experiences. Yeah? Two human bodies by themselves without the consciousness are just inert. Yeah? They don't have a life of their own. There is no movement. There is no sentience. Yes? They come into contact with each other and have experiences only because of the consciousness within. If the consciousness is taken out of two bodies, yeah, obviously they are going to be lying on the floor like corpses. Would they experience each other lying next to each other? So you see that? The experiences are derived by this piece of Prakriti because of that consciousness. This consciousness is like the typhoon which is unseen in itself, but in which sand particles and dust rise and dance as if by themselves. Awesome example. A typhoon is like you see a little dust whirlpool in the air. Yeah, it's going round and round and round. It seems like dust has suddenly got wings and has started flying. Yeah, as if dust exists by itself, or it has the power to fly around, round and round like that. But is that true? No. It is the power of the wind that is doing it, correct? Just like that. I am speaking to you. It is the power of the consciousness that is doing this. You are listening to me. That is the power of the consciousness that is enabling that piece of Prakriti to listen to this piece of Prakriti talking. This consciousness casts a shadow in itself, as it were, and that is regarded as tamas or inertia. Yeah. So, even if tamas takes over me, that is also part of the consciousness. So really, you don't have to run away from tamas or make an extra effort to escape inertia. Yeah? Inertia is a part of the consciousness. That is why there is night. Yeah? That is why you need to sleep. The body is not all the time active. It also needs its 6 to 8 hours of refreshment and rejuvenation, which can only happen in the state of tamas. Yeah? So that state of tamas also is brought on by the consciousness, is a product of the consciousness. Yeah, just like I can get stuck in activity. Yeah, for example, I can become a workaholic and just keep myself trapped in activity and ambition and wanting this and wanting that. So I'm getting trapped in rajas and getting attached to rajas, and then going overboard. Same way I can go overboard with tamas, right? Though rajas and tamas both are creation of the consciousness. Yeah, respect both, follow the laws, and don't overindulge either in rajas or in tamas. Maintain that perfect balance. The perfect balance between the two is sattva. Yeah. In this body, thoughts and notions generate action in the light of this very consciousness. Surely, but for this consciousness, even an object which is immediately in front of oneself cannot be experienced. Yeah. So thoughts and ideas or notions generate an action. Yeah. Before I take any action, first there is a thought, first there is an idea. Yeah. But from where did the thought come? From where did the idea come? It says it is from the very consciousness. Surely, but for this consciousness, even an object which is immediately in front of oneself cannot be experienced. If this consciousness was not there, the idea would also not come. Yeah? So you cannot give Prakriti any kind of credit by itself. It's not possible. Yeah, not even a simple idea, a great idea that comes to you to start a new kind of platform which becomes a great friendship platform on the internet and becomes a multi-million-dollar company. But it started with one little idea, and that one little idea comes from the consciousness. Yeah, you are just a good patra. Yes, that is why that good idea came to you. A bad idea can also come to you. Yeah, there also you are a good patra for a bad idea. Yeah, so you check what kind of a patra are you. Yeah, you will know the answer just by looking at the kind of thoughts that come to you. Yeah. Now you can't blame the consciousness, oh it is the consciousness's fault. It's sending all bad ideas my way. I am attracting bad ideas because I am that kind of a patra. Yes, that's homework number 2 for you. What kind of a patra are you? Are you attracting good or are you attracting bad? The body cannot function or exist but for this consciousness. It grows, it falls, it eats. This consciousness creates and maintains all the movable and the immovable beings in the universe. The infinite consciousness alone exists, not else exists. Consciousness alone has arisen in consciousness. This is very beautiful. Yeah, it's like a huge field of consciousness. In that huge field of consciousness, one little current of consciousness, which we call prana, has given rise to this Prakriti. So that Prakriti also came out of the consciousness. So in a way you can say the consciousness came out of the field of consciousness. Yeah? Let's read ahead. Page 253. Even as there is no oil in a rock, the diversity of sight, seer and seen, or of doer, act and action, or of knower, knowledge and known, does not exist in pure consciousness. Similarly, the distinction between I and you, between the one and many, is just verbal. On inquiry, all these disappear and only the unmodified pure consciousness remains. Consciousness does not undergo any modification, nor does it become impure. This infinite consciousness, which is unmodified and non-dual, can be realized by one in the self-luminous inner light. It is pure and eternal. It is ever present and devoid of mind. Yeah? This is very important. I and you, these are just concepts. These are just verbal. Why? Because I see one Prakriti here and one Prakriti there. For the sake of convenience, I had to establish a way of communication between this Prakriti and that Prakriti so that we can exist in a harmonious environment together. A communication needs to be established. For the sake of communication, we used I and you. But my ego started making this I really bloated and you very small, inconspicuous, so insignificant, useless little thing. And then I made this ego issue so big. I attached so much importance to I and so much insignificant importance. Remember, it's insignificant importance attached to you, but it's still importance because I give it a lot of thought, a lot of emotional attachment is there to that insignificant little you. And this dvandva between I and you has separated me further away from seeing reality as it is. Yeah, this has increased or thickened my curtain of Maya, or that curtain of ignorance that prevents me from seeing the truth or reality as it is on the other side. Yeah? When you are able to penetrate through this thick curtain of Maya, come to the other side and see reality as it is. See the truth as it is. What happens? You see it simply as I and you is used for communication. There is really no difference between I and you. I and you both are a drop each in the same ocean. Oh, it is the same huge ocean. That moment, that seer, the act of seeing and the object of sight, this drops. The knower, the knowing and the object of knowledge drops. This distinction that was always there, because of my ignorance, that drops on the other side. Yeah. He has very beautifully described ahead how that field of consciousness is on the other side. Yeah. He says consciousness does not undergo any modification, nor does it become impure. So it is not conditioned by your concept of I and you. Yeah? It is not conditioned by your concepts or your attachments to certain ragas and certain dveshas. Yeah? The objects of your ragas and dveshas. There is no attachment to that. this infinite consciousness, which is unmodified and non-dual. It is non-dual, remember? Duality is I and you. Non-dual is the opposite of that. That is why it is unmodified. Yeah? Modification means I have created a division. Unmodified here means there is no division. It is all the same water. No difference. Clear? It can be realized by one in the self-luminous inner light. Yeah, there is no light which is coming on inside. It just means you can see the truth when you go within. Yeah, deep in meditation, or when you bring yourself focusing and concentrating on reality, on truth as it is. That has been given a synonym of an inner light. Yeah. Please don't start imagining an inner light, white light or blue light. No. Yeah. It is pure and eternal. It is ever present. What? The consciousness is pure. The consciousness is eternal, and it is ever present. And it is devoid of mind. This is the key here. So, for me to penetrate this thick curtain of Maya and go to the other side, what needs to be left behind? The mind. Yes. So, in the next paragraph, he has very beautifully described how the mind is involved in this entire field of consciousness and what happens by dropping the mind or leaving it behind. Consciousness alone is the reality in all forms and all experiences. Yeah? Action springs from thought. A thought comes to me, yeah? Then only I act. Correct? Yes. Even if it is a spontaneous action, it comes from a very subtle thought. Yes. Thought does not have to be a big long hypothesis in your mind, a big white paper in your mind. No. It's a very subtle thought. Very subtle. It's like an attraction, yeah, or a repulsion. That's it. It does not have to come in words. It does not have to be a one-page essay in your head. Yeah, a thought is just that, a pull in a particular direction. So even a spontaneous action has a very subtle thought behind it. Yeah, for example, if I see that the phone is just about to tip and fall off the table, I don't have to think or analyze, oh, if the phone falls down, the display will be broken. If the display is broken, it's going to cost me so much and I might not be able to make phone calls, and for 1 week I will be without a phone. I don't go into the entire hypothesis of what can happen. Yeah, I don't even have to think. I just put my hand there and save the phone from tipping over. I didn't think here. Yeah, it was a spontaneous action. Yes, but it still has a subtle pull, a subtle kind of a pull towards saving something from getting destroyed. Yes, just a basic sense of saving something. That's all it is. It might be a person falling down, it might be a phone falling down, it could be anything. It doesn't matter whether it is even a little insect which is ready to topple off. Yeah, and I'm there to just take it in my hand or in my whatever. Suppose you've kept a little yogurt box for the insect, in that insect locator box of yours, and put it out in the yard. Yeah, whatever it is, it came from a spontaneous thought. Got it? So every action sprouts from a thought. Very clear? Yeah? So from a thought comes an action. So far clear? Thought is the function of the mind. Thought came from The mind. Mind is conditioned consciousness. Yes. So now we are describing the mind here. Yeah. Mind is conditioned consciousness. So for example, the water in the ocean is actually colorless. Yeah. But when the sky reflects on a particular patch in the ocean, the water looks blue to me. In the evening, say it's twilight time, the ocean does not look blue anymore. It starts looking darker and darker. It becomes navy blue, then black, and then it disappears. It's completely dark. I cannot see anything. Yeah. So, has the ocean changed its color? No. It's the conditioning. Yeah. The conditioning that has changed the color. Now understand, conditioning here is of course refraction of light that comes onto my eyes and what I see. Yeah? But where my mind is concerned, my mind is conditioned consciousness. Yes. It came from a pool of consciousness that was unconditioned, that was pure. Yeah? So, mind is conditioned consciousness, but consciousness is unconditioned. Clear? Here we have conditioned consciousness, and this came from pure consciousness. You can put here pure or unconditioned. Jiva is the vehicle of consciousness. So, Jiva is the vehicle of consciousness, he says. Then, ego sense is the vehicle of Jiva. Why ego? Because you came out of the pool of consciousness with the first I. Yeah. Now, how did the first I come? Yeah, that is very important here. Intelligence is the vehicle of ego sense. Yeah. So, there was some kind of an intelligence that propelled me to say that first I. Yes. And really back to the mind. So, what is the difference between this mind and this mind? It's the same, right? Here, you can just look at it as the mind which is today, extremely conditioned, full of habits, habit patterns, collected for lifetimes. The difference between this mind and this mind is, here the mind is not so conditioned, but just attracted in a particular direction of intelligence propelling it, or it propelling the intelligence in a particular direction. Yeah? Just that feeling of individuality, that sense of me being separate from this pool of consciousness. Yeah? Mind is the vehicle of intelligence. Yeah? So we come to this side. Imagine it's the same chain continued, but the board is not so big enough. Mind is the vehicle of intelligence, yeah, but prana is the vehicle of the mind. So understand, this mind here is my puryastaka, or my subtle body. Remember, yeah. Now this subtle body came into the vibrations that were happening in the pool of consciousness, which is the nature of the pool of consciousness. So the vehicle of my subtle body is really the prana, the vibrations, which is the nature of the pool of consciousness. Yeah? Then this prana, come back really and see what is the function of this prana today. In the beginning of the creation, I know it's just vibrating in the pool of consciousness. But today, what does this prana do? It moves in and out of this Prakriti. This prana is high, I say my energy is high. When this prana is low, I say my energy is low. So basically, this prana is nothing but the degree of rajas and tamas and sattva, the combination of the three in my body. Right? Now, this prana, what does it do? When I'm very rajasic, I want to see something, I want to hear something, I want to speak something, I want to touch, do something, do some action. Yeah? When this prana is low, I just want to close all my senses. No, I don't want to use them, and I am just resting. So what is really the vehicle of prana? The senses, right? The prana moves through the senses. Yeah? So here he says, prana is the vehicle of the mind. Yeah? And the senses are the vehicle of prana. Clear so far? Now, where are the senses? What is the vehicle of the senses? Obviously the body. Yeah? My physical body is the vehicle of the five senses. Yeah? Now, this body, what does it do? It is always in motion. Yeah? Your body cannot be still, and here motion implies some kind of action. Yeah? The body cannot be without action. Even just closing your eyelids and opening is an action in itself. Yeah? So the body cannot be without motion or action. In other words, the body cannot be without karma. Clear? Because prana is the vehicle of the mind. Yeah? Prana is the vehicle of the mind. When the prana takes it, the mind goes. But when the mind is merged in the spiritual heart, prana does not move and the mind attains a quiescent state. There is your key. He reminds you that you came out of the pool of consciousness. Why? Because of that vibrations in the prana, and you moved with that vibration. Yeah? You gave into that prana, and that's how the mind came into being, as in the puryastaka or the subtle body came into being. So there, that movement of prana, yeah, that takes it. When that takes it, then there is mind. But now, to reverse the process, what do I have to do? I have to learn to still the mind, withdraw from the mind. Into the spiritual heart, you understand, is the causal body. Got it? Yeah. You withdraw from all the senses and the actions of the senses. So you withdraw from all the karma that the body is doing. You withdraw from all the senses and you go within and just establish in the spiritual heart, yeah, which is in the causal body. Just go within, deeper and deeper. Ignore the chitter chatter of the mind and just be. When you are just in the self, quiet, with the truth as it is, not wanting it to be different from what it is and not wanting it to be not different. No ragas, no dveshas. Just quiet, subtle, in the heart, in the spiritual heart. When you're in that silence of the spiritual heart or the causal body, as you already know it, prana does not move. That movement in prana stops. When the movement in prana stops, mind dies. You attain the state of no mind. Yes. That is the key. That is the key to go beyond the thick curtain of Maya and establish with the truth, the highest truth, the field of consciousness. Clear? Yeah. The reflection of consciousness within itself is known as Puryastaka. Means this consciousness, when it goes and looks within, and it sees, oh, I am an individual, the Puryastaka is born, or the subtle body is born. Mind alone is Puryastaka, though others have described it more elaborately as composed of the 5 elements, or as an inner instrument, or antakaran, or the organs of action, or senses, or ignorance, or desire. Subtle body is desire. Or karma, it creates karma, so it itself is called karma. There are many definitions for it. It is also known as the subtle body, or linga sharira. The other word you know for it is sukshma sharira. When the mind is divested of its support, it remains alone in the self. So what was the support of the mind? That vibrating prana, that moving prana, constant movement of prana. Yes. When this constant movement of prana, which is supporting the mind, is gone, it's completely dead, no motion, no movement, the mind does not know what to do. It's stuck as if frozen. And it becomes quiet. It just remains alone in the self. When the Puryastaka is rid of all its support, it attains a state of quiescence and falls motionless. It becomes absolutely motionless. When the lotus of the heart unfolds, the Puryastaka functions. When the lotus folds, the Puryastaka ceases to function. As long as the Puryastaka functions, the body lives. When it ceases to function, the body dies. This is another important one. If you remember, some time ago we did the lotus of the heart. What was it? You remember the composition of the entire subtle body? And the nadis and the 9 gates. So in that he had described that enclosed in your body is the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna nadis. You remember that in the subtle body? And they are like lotus. They are lotus-like wheels. And these wheels are basically in motion because of the prana, apana, samana. You remember? Vayana. All the 5 vital airs that move, they rotate these wheels. These lotus-like wheels operate because of prana. Yes. So when prana is completely motionless, can these lotus-like wheels function? The heart of the lotus he describes here. Can it function? It cannot function. So he says, when the lotus of the heart unfolds, the Puryastaka functions. So it was functioning till this lotus like wheels were moving or unfolding and folding, unfolding and folding because of the movement of prana, pana, samana. You remember that, right? Now I have taken away the prana, pana, samana by just focusing on or withdrawing from the senses and the world and karma and action, and just being centered in the heart, in the causal body. So what this does is, now the lotus like wheels that were moving suddenly stand still. So that's what he says here. When the lotus folds, the Puryastaka ceases to function. So the functioning of your mind totally stops. As long as the Puryastaka functions, the body lives. When it ceases to function, the body dies. So not only will the mind die, even the body will cease to exist. This cessation can be caused by some form of inner conflict between the impurities and inner awakening. Yeah, when that inner awakening happens, that recognition of the truth, for some time there will be a war. Just like the war happens in your mind between the good and the bad, right and the wrong, like that only a war happens. At the last step there will be a war between the impurities that you have been holding on to, the ragas and dveshas, and this inner awakening which has just started to happen because of the stoppage of prana and the proceeding stoppage of the mind. An inner awakening is happening, but then the impurities are like boiling. They don't want to go away, they want to come out. So a struggle happens here. Yeah. So let's read that line. This cessation can be caused by some form of inner conflict between the impurities and inner awakening. And if only pure vasana or tendencies fill one's heart, yeah, you're very centered and that's where you want to be. Yeah, you're very clear. The vasana is not outwards, it is inwards. Yeah. Now you would say, oh, vasana I thought is only negative. Long ago we also did, there is pure vasana in the beginning of Yoga Vasistha somewhere. And that pure vasana brings you to the path. This pure vasana helps you go within deeper and deeper. Yes? Until the time only this pure vasana exists, all the impurities died out. Yeah? Till that time proper inner awakening will not happen. For proper inner awakening to happen, what is mandatory prerequisite? Just that pure vasanas filling your heart. Yeah. So, if only pure vasana or tendency fills one's heart, all conflicts cease and there is harmony, liberation and longevity. Now don't start thinking, oh, longevity in this body. Yeah. Beyond this body will cease to be. Yeah. It's very important homework for you. Are you ready for this body to cease? Or is there still impure vasanas that are kind of igniting the jiveshana in you, where you still want to be in the body? Has that attachment to this body gone? Are you ready to let it go? Very important homework for today. You must introspect. Really look within. Am I ready to let go of this body? What if this body ceases right now? Am I ready to embrace what is without wanting to grasp something that is going away? Ask yourself. Otherwise, when the body dies, the subtle body chooses another suited to fulfill the hidden vasana. Yeah, there are hidden vasanas. What will happen? The Puryastaka chooses a particular body then, and you will be caught in the cycle of birth and death and birth and death. Due to these vasanas, the Puryastaka forges new links with the new subtle body, forgetting its nature as pure consciousness. Yeah, the word forges new links is very important. Just like we start dreaming and in the dream I start flying, or I have this kind of a body, or I have that kind of clothes, or I have this kind of man or woman with me, and I'm forging everything. I'm forging a new link. You see what I'm saying? really that Ekta in that dream does not exist. She does not have wings and she does not fly, and there is no hero over there or Superman flying with her. But all this is forged by my Puryastaka. Yeah? So, or forged by my mind. Just like that, the Puryastaka also forges, yes, also creates its own Manohar Kahani and forgets about its pure nature. Since the omnipresent infinite consciousness alone is present at all times, diversity is absurd and impossible. Yeah, because there is just one huge ocean. You cannot remove one drop from the ocean and say, oh, this is individual water. No, it's water element which is there throughout the ocean. So, diversity, saying this is diverse or different from the ocean, this is absurd and impossible. Belief in the existence of a goblin creates it. Yeah? As in, you are lost in Manohar Kahani, and because of being lost in your own dream world, like Alice in Wonderland, yeah, that is what is creating it, your imagination. Belief in the diversity establishes it. Then I start believing, oh really this is true. I have wings and I have Superman flying with me. I believe in it. This is the truth. Yeah? It gets established in my consciousness. And when the non-dual being is known, the duality vanishes instantly. The moment I wake up from my dream and I realize, oh no, this Ekta really does not have wings and there is no Superman flying in the sky with her. Oh. Then what happens? This duality vanishes instantly. The dream vanishes instantly. It is all. It is supreme blessedness and peace. It is beyond expression. It is purest Om. It is transcendent. It is supreme. Yeah? By Om, because when you go into the causal body, into your spiritual heart, and you're established there in the silence of the self, you will experience the vibration of Om. It is Om. Yeah. So with that, I would like you to think about these 2 pages. Do your homework sincerely. Yeah. And I'll let you go with the chant of Om today. Let's all close our eyes. Take a deep breath in and out. Take another deep breath in and let go. Take a deep breath in. Om Shanti Shanti. Krishna. I'll see you next week. Those who want to continue can continue meditating. Jai Gurudev.